to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Justice Rajnish Bhatnagar of the Delhi High Court made an interesting comment that lookout circulars should be used sparingly. It is not something that should be used in a routine manner because it involves liberty. Why this comment is very important is what we are going to discuss today with two eminent panelists to join us in this part A and Part B. We're going to have many panelists joining. In this first segment, I have with me Senior Advocate Geeta Luthra, a well-known name in the field of criminal law. Ma'am, good to see you and looking forward to some interesting insights. And I have with me Niharika Karanjawala. She is with Karanjawala and Company, one of India's leading litigation law firms. Good to see you, Niharika, and look forward to some interesting comments from your end too. At the outset, may I request ma'am to open the show with her comment on what went through your mind first when you heard Justice Rajnish Bhatnagar's comment on this issue?
So I'm very happy. Actually, I think you need more judgments or rather more authoritative pronouncements on lookout circulars. Very often, the courts quash a lookout circular, give it back to the authorities saying reconsider, tell them that there is no reasoning, tell them 1 year has passed. But you need courts to say that, look, a lookout circular cannot be sent out just like that. And I think it's a long time coming, although we've had judgments from other parts of the country. From Delhi, from the Delhi High Court, this has come after almost 2 judgments, one of Justice Muralidhar, which was perhaps not so specific, and one by Justice Dhingra, which Sumer Singh Salkan, which has become like the bedrock or the foundation of LOC and why it should be issued. So I'm very happy. We need to flag this and we need to flag it even more strongly.
Okay, point well taken. I'll go to Niharika Karanjawala from Karanjawala and Company. Niharika, your law firm takes many matters which pertain to liberty of individuals, bail matters on a day-to-day basis. When you hear such a comment from Judge of the Delhi High Court, namely Justice Rajnish Bhatnagar, any comments on that?
So Tarun, I'm in complete agreement with Geeta ma'am. It's really welcome to hear comments like this from a judge of the High Court, and it also emphasizes the view towards liberty and fairness that the court is taking. Two of the greatest problems with lookout circulars are there is an opacity to them and there is an arbitrariness to them. And if the courts take this view, not simply in quashing them at a later stage, but in stating at the outset that this can't simply be a mechanical thing one puts in when suspicion first falls on an individual, but there has to be some basis to it, some fairness to it. I think it'll go a long way towards ensuring that the system is not used in an arbitrary, knee-jerk manner.
Okay, point well taken. I'll go to Ma'am Geeta Luthra. Ma'am, what are the few issues concerning LOCs that you have witnessed in the past few years, and why this makes it, this comment by the judge, Justice Rajnish Bhatnagar, a ray of hope in a sense that courts are recognizing that liberty and right to do business are important. When you put somebody in jail, you are arresting his right to do business because you're arresting his liberty. He can't function as he should.
So I just wanted to say that a lookout circular actually is something which is most dreaded. And sometimes people innocently go to the airport not knowing what hits slam. Suddenly a person at the immigration says, there is a LOC against you, please get out of the line. You think you're a fugitive from justice. You have to stand there while they make all these inquiries. And it is actually, I've come, a lot of people said it's the most humiliating experience. Now, it doesn't really emanate from a statutory authority. That's the fiery thing about a LOC. You have a LOC, there are guidelines with regard to a lookout circular. a deputy secretary from the government of India, a joint secretary from a state, some MD and according to me, if you look at the history of LOCs, SFIO has the power, although I don't know what is the statutory authority of SFIO to be giving lookout circulars. All of them have been given this authority through circulars, which are overreaching the law. They are contrary to your right, your fundamental right to travel. So here you are, you have something which is extra legal, extra judicial, extra constitutional, and it actually cuts at the feet of every businessman. So I'm of course concerned for businessmen. I'm concerned for every citizen of this country who with bated breath is going through the immigration saying, am I safe or am I not safe? Why should any individual have a LOC and not even be told that you have a LOC against you? Why should he have to see it at the airport? Why should there not be guidelines? The original guidelines said only 1 year and then it dies a natural death. Now, by a strange fate, they seem to say now it can keep being revived. Now, what was the purpose of a LOC? A lookout circular has one purpose. It has that there is a case registered against you. They fear that you will not cooperate or not come for that case. They fear that you will evade process. So first they have to set that, they have to meet that threshold. They have to show that they got a summons, that summons, even though sent to the right address, to the right person, he did not cooperate, he did not appear before you. Look at the case which Justice Bhatnagar, for example, has looked at. He says the man was never required. He'd never been called. He had no warrant against him. He had not been arrested during the entire period. Then this is a gross misuse. Unless in India we start imposing damages on wrongful arrest or wrongful stopping, even in a LOC, we are going to actually be scaring our businessmen away. We cannot afford to do that. On one hand, we want to encourage people to come to India. On one hand, we want to encourage foreign direct investment. On the one hand, we want to do all this. On the other hand, you are creating such a fear psychosis even with somebody, because who knows when a case will be quietly registered against you saying, this is the money you have got, this. See, ultimately, you need to be called. If you don't cooperate, I'm doing one matter in the Supreme Court where for 7 years, there's the person's own 7 years he's approaching court after court, and courts will be scared because courts look at it. All right, this person's required. We can't interfere with the investigation. So courts are chary. They will warn thrice. The department will thrice say, I want more time. I want again to have more time. When they've never called him for investigation for 3 years or 4 years, now, after 4 years, just because he wants the LOC cancelled, they'll say, no, we need him. And they'll call him. And then they will say, all right, come back after 2 months. And they'll continue the LOC. This is not the purpose of LOC. And therefore, a businessman remains in terrorum that this may be put against him.
Point very well taken. One final comment from Niharika Karanjawala of Karanjawala and Company. Justice Rajnish Bhatnagar remarked that right to travel is a fundamental right and should be curtailed only in exceptional circumstances. Do you think such progressive comments made by judges go a long way in sending a message down the line also that now even banks have a right to issue LOCs. So I mean, it's now gone out of the hands. Anybody can issue an LOC against you, and this message to use it in a responsible manner goes a long way in ensuring that a message goes across that you can't just let a businessman stop his travel and limit him to India because you've got the power that you are suspecting something, you say you can't travel. Your comment on that?
Absolutely, Tarun. Absolutely. I think comments like this, liberty-oriented comments, make a huge difference to investigators ultimately, because, all of these systems start out from a place of intending good. Why were bankers allowed to issue, starting from 2018, I believe, why were chairmen of nationalized banks allowed to put in requests for this? Because of the NPA crisis, right? It starts from a good point. It starts from a point of wanting fairness and not wanting people to evade the system. And then it sort of evolves into just an arbitrary and coercive measure into strangling people, right? And it's not just from the perspective of the institutions and businessmen that it's a good thing that comments of this sort are being made. It's from the perspective of the system in general, because a system is only as fair as its least fair process. And what you have here is a situation where investigations may not even be ongoing, but you can be curtailed and humiliated for next to no reason. Your reputation can take a massive hit. And one of the most insidious things about this process is the opacity involved. Why can you not be informed that there's a lookout circular against you? If the authorities want to cancel my passport, they have to give me notice that they're canceling it. If the authorities want to have bail conditions imposed on me to restrict travel through the courts, they have to give me notice and they have to give me a chance to be heard. So what is it about lookout circulars, even though they're all intended for the same purpose, which is that an individual not skip away from the system of justice? But what is it about lookout circulars that allow them to be issued with absolutely no notice to the individual involved, with next to no justification for why they may even be required? Why is the first assumption that I am likely to flee from justice? Doesn't there have to be some process established? And I totally agree with Geeta ma'am as well when she said that there has to be some accountability measure here. And I think that statements from courts and statements as like the one Justice Bhatnagar has made will go a long, long way towards ensuring a fairness to our system. And it is also the system that deserves it, not simply the people who are at its mercy.
Thanks. Well said. And thank you so much, Niharika Karanjawala, ma'am, Geeta Luthra, for joining us in this segment and sharing your views in support of what Justice Rajnish Bhatnagar said. It goes a long way in giving hope to a lot of people, because let us all remember that liberty is the cornerstone of even the constitutional values that all we stand by. Thank you so much. Appreciate your joining us, and thank you so very much. Welcome back. Now we are joined by senior advocate Pramod Kumar Dubey, also Manmeet Singh, whose partner, the dispute resolution practice with Saraf and Partners, one of India's leading law firms. Good to see you both, and looking forward to some interesting insights from you on this issue of LOC.
Thank you.
Mr. Dubey, you spend your days in Delhi High Court and Supreme Court all the while in the courts of law, and LOC is an issue which you witness on a day-to-day basis. When you hear these kind of comments by Justice Bhatnagar, where he says, use this sparingly, it involves liberty, and liberty is very important, what goes through your mind? And the message that Justice Bhatnagar has sent, could you share the importance of that message that will go to the investigating agency, the banks who are also allowed to, in a sense, issue LOCs?
Tarun, I would defer to say this is the comment by Justice Bhatnagar. I would rather say that this is the jurisprudence of Justice Bhatnagar on the LOC.
Yes.
And this was the demand of the day. What is happening this day? See, the issuance of the LOC is basically restraining the movement of the person, individuals. So this is the infringement of the personal liberty of an individual that the individual is entitled to have under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. What is happening? And the law has come, which has been enacted by the executive and the parliament. If the bankers are there, if there is a commercial disputes going on, suppose I have taken the loan from the bank and I fail to make the payment well within the time. So what the bankers also got the opportunity to issue the LOC. How a person who is in the commercial transaction can infringe my personal liberty? And this is to be decided. This is not a small issue. So every day we are coming across the cases where somewhere the agency has issued the LOC, somewhere the bankers have issued the LOC. And one more interesting thing I would say, suppose during the investigation, the agency get LOC issued. This is one aspect. But once the investigation complete, the complaint or the charge sheet filed before the competent court of law, and the matter is sub judice before the competent court of law. So the investigating agency has nothing to do. It is between the accused and the competent court of law, and it is the duty of the court. The court will ensure the presence of the accused by way of imposing the certain conditions. But still, once the LOC is open, that is open forever. Despite the matter is concluded, the investigation is concluded, the charge has been filed, the court has taken the cognizance, summons have been issued. This is the one aspect. The second aspect, recently we have seen what is happening. You are getting the coercive process issue. The process is changed, stages are changed. And again, you are continuing the same coercive process. Day before yesterday, we had a case where during the course of the investigation, the enforcement directorate had got the NBW issued for the purpose of the investigation against an individual. I don't want to name the individual. Thereafter, they filed the complaint before the court. Court has issued the summons. So you see the nature. Earlier, the process was NBW. Subsequently, after the filing the complaint, the court decided to issue the summons. So once the court decided to issue the summons, so the NBW lost its life. They should have returned the NBW to the competent court of law. But despite the issuance of the summons, the person got apprehended, produced before the court. The court says, I have not given you the right to arrest the gentleman. I have only issued the summons, and this arrest is illegal. So this is the second aspect. The third aspect is very important and it must be considered because I'm raising this issue from your forum. Once the LOC is issued, they are issuing the LOC against any individual. The individual is completely kept in dark. He's not having the knowledge whether the LOC is issued against him or not.
Okay.
Once you have issued the notice, at least to inform the individual, yes, we have issued the coercive measure against you, the LOC is pending. Once the individual starts traveling and they are approaching the immigration, then suddenly they comes to know, yes, there is a LOC pending against you, we are apprehending you, and then you are detained. The person would be submitted to the jurisdiction of the investigating agency, and subsequently they are coming with the case, no, the gentleman is the flight risk. He was fleeing from the country, he was leaving the country, he was apprehended at the airport. Have you put on the notice? No, they have not put on the notice. So whatever Justice Bhatnagar has said in the judgment, that is the complete protection of the fundamental right of the individual.
Thanks for that comment in detail explaining this issue. You had to say something more?
Exactly, because see, unless and until you pass a board order in the criminal jurisprudence and balance the right of the individual versus the society, you cannot develop a democratic country.
Okay.
You cannot go in one side, only see the case of the prosecuting agency, because the Article 21 is a very important article. You cannot give the complete go by to the Article 21 without following the due process of the law. So justice, and what is the important thing? You don't have anything in the judgment which is passed by Justice Bhatnagar. The person has traveled several times. He came back to India. Now you are opposing his application on the premises. If we have the apprehension, he will not come back to the India. What is the basis of your apprehension? My case is, and what I am trying to develop here, if you are the prosecuting agency, you are any enforcement agency, don't oppose anything for the sake of the opposition. Yes, we are opposing.
Point well
Because being the prosecutor, it is your duty. If you are a prosecutor, you are not only the prosecutor for the state. You are the prosecutor. Your duty is to first protect the right of the accused, because the accused is also the part of the society.
Point well taken. I'll take this point to Manmeet Singh, partner, dispute resolution practice of Saraf and Partners. Now, typically large law firm like yours, you deal with clients both in the corporate end and the litigation end. Issues like these would come up in their minds when they invest in India, that, if God forbid they make a mistake, there is a possibility that their travel would be restrained. When judges like Justice Rajnish Bhatnagar take this, in a sense, bold step and announce that and give a message to the agencies, given how many agencies now have the power to issue LOCs, that don't use it in a cavalier manner. Don't just use it because you have the power. What message goes across in the business community and the society because of this single statement that a judge gives?
Tarun, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. Let me start by saying that this is indeed a very progressive judgment. And Justice Bhatnagar, when he has said that mere suspicion is not enough and that curtailment should happen only in exceptional circumstances, has really laid down the law on how LOC should be, the jurisprudence around LOC should be developed and it should be interpreted by courts. Now, of course, in all cases, this would be a question of facts and circumstances. But say by laying the standard that mere suspicion is not enough, I think it is a very, very progressive step which has happened. And it will act as a guiding principle for subsequent situations, similar situations. Now, I think as Mr. Dubey had also mentioned that most of these get issued in commercial transactions. Now, if one was to go back and look at the BLRC report, that too had recognized that promoter malconduct is only one of the several reasons why a business may fail and a company may default on its debts. Very often the reasons are very different. The technology becomes obsolete, the business economics change. So defaults can happen because of several reasons. And giving the power to issue LOC to the banks has to therefore, it necessarily needs to be construed in this light that merely because there is a large bank default. Now, of course, in India, what happens is whenever there's a large default, there is a certain presumption that people rush to make. A lot of it is media-driven, social media-driven. And I think it is very, very important, therefore, to be careful that while exercising the right to issue these LOCs, we are not curtailing the freedom and the fundamental rights which are guaranteed by the Constitution of India. And if one looks at it, look at the number of insolvency cases, for instance, which are out there in the NCLTs, which have been resolved, which are pending, which are in liquidation. And a lot of these relate to default on financial debts. And on the other hand, look at the number of people who have actually fled. Those are a handful. So the exception, which is promoter fleeing the way or the management leaving the country, cannot be used to make a general rule as to how LOC would be issued and how it would get operated. Therefore, I think it is very important that if we have to boost investment confidence in India, our laws should be such that we encourage entrepreneurship. I remember some time back, the international CEO of a large real estate company who had nothing to do with Indian operations. He was not even on the board of Indian subsidiary. He was stopped at the airport. Of course, subsequently it got all cleared, but he was stopped at the airport merely because certain home buyers had approached and filed cases, and that had resulted in issuance of an LOC. So therefore, it is very important that if we have to encourage business in India, that we promote a culture where fear is not, a constraint in doing business in India. And I'm quite cognizant that Government of India is also seized with taking initiatives to decriminalize various things, various breaches which were earlier offenses under the Companies Act, under other statutes, only on the basis that all of this needs to be decriminalized. The culture of fear has to go for people to take the risk. If we are looking at Make in India as a big thing, and which clearly it's the focus of the government, then we, along with those steps, the jurisprudence on these issues also has to get aligned, especially because these are liberties which are guaranteed by the Constitution. So I must therefore sum up by saying that this is indeed a pro-liberty and a very progressive judgment, which is in fact what the Constitution requires.
Pro-liberty and progressive judgment. And I'll take two quick comments before we end the show. I'll go to Mr. Senior Advocate P.K. Dubey. Justice Bhatnagar also said that mere suspicion is not enough. You have to be convinced that the person will indeed abscond. Merely because you have a suspicion, you issue an LOC. So is the judge trying to give a strong message that, simply because you have a power, just don't use it, not realizing what bad impact it can have on business and businessmen and the business climate in India?
See, Tarun, I think why this jurist developed by Justice Bhatnagar, because earlier Justice Dhingra has already passed the guidelines in Sumer Singh Sarkar. And that guidelines was taken by the Ministry of External Affairs and the Home Affairs, and they passed the OM. The OM was there. These are the circumstances under which the LOC can be issued. So there no respect for the Sumer Singh Sarkar. And they are coming with the case that yes, the person cannot come back because Mr. X has left the country, he has not returned. See, you have to see my personal liberty as an individual. You cannot equate me from X, Y, Z. So the mere suspicion has no value in the criminal jurisprudence. You have to come with the case. In the positive case, having the evidence or the material, yes, you have the reasonable belief that once I leave the country, I cannot come back to the country. So that's why Justice Bhatnagar has said, and Justice Bhatnagar's judgment is the pro-liberty. Well, this is the new concept Justice Bhatnagar has given. With the mere suspicion, you can't do anything. You are dealing with the criminal jurisprudence. Why you are implicating the civil jurisprudence?
Point very well taken. We are almost out of time. So I take one.
Must be taken as strictly. You are criminal jurisprudence. You come with the clear case.
Point. I'll take a 30-second comment from Manmeet Singh, partners, Saraf and partners. And when we end the show, Mr. Singh, I want to ask you this, that in a growing economy like India, are these indicators of confidence that judges try to develop in the economy by issuing such statements that come and invest in India? The courts are there to protect you. Because when a court sends such a message, it is an indicator of protection, that your liberty will be protected and the courts are there to stand for it.
Tarun, I couldn't agree with you more. I completely agree. I think this is a very powerful judgment, so to say, which will definitely send a message that it is not in every case, every frivolous case, that your liberty can be curtailed. Only when there is a reasonably high probability of you evading the process, only then will something of this nature happen. So I think this is this is a very important step in the development of jurisprudence on this issue.
Appreciate your comment, and I would like to thank Senior Advocate Pramod Kumar Dubey, Manmeet Singh, partners, Saraf and partners. You made time and joined us on the show and shared your opinions on an issue involving liberty and business, which I think is most important than anything else today. Appreciate your joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.